A constitution that you don't understand is a constitution that's not worth having. And today we have a lot of people, I would say the majority of people, do not understand the Constitution. And I'm not talking about the things we all know, such as the Bill of Rights. I'm talking about the less obvious and more important things that are going overlooked. And what I'm going to do is outline exactly what is being violated, how it's being violated, and why you should care. So the first thing we're going to address, and I'm not going to read I'm not going to read to you the entire Constitution, but the first thing we're going to address is the preamble. And I'll read it to you first. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. What does this mean? Everybody that you will talk to will tell you the preamble means nothing. That's what they will tell you, and that is the first lie they told you. What do we know about this preamble? It tells us the intentions of the Constitution. Okay, so what are the intentions of the Constitution? We're going to establish justice, achieve domestic tranquility, defend ourselves, be good, and most importantly, secure the blessings of liberty. To whom? Ourselves and our posterity. What's our posterity? Our children. Okay? So, for this reason, we establish the Constitution to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves, and who is ourselves? We, the people of the United States. Okay? So what is this? If you're doing anything constitutional, the only way you are in compliance with this Constitution is if you are protecting these blessings. If you are ignoring these blessings, you are ignoring the preamble, you are ignoring why we're here. And that is the first step. You go to any court in this nation, you go to any court, and they will tell you that the preamble is bullshit. They will look to you in your face with a black robe on and a gavel in hand, and they will tell you, in a court of law as a judge who swore to uphold and defend these blessings of liberty, they will tell you that the preamble means nothing. That is where the first deception lies. And this is important moving forward to describe what goes on in the rest, because if you don't understand that the Constitution is about securing the blessings of liberty, and blessings come from God, until you understand that, you're not going to understand any of this. So I recommend you read this before absorbing what's about to come. So now that we have that preamble out of the way, we're going to start skipping around this Constitution a bit so I don't confuse it too much. But the first place we're going to look, where's the next violation? We already know the first violation's in the preamble, and specifically in how the courts handle it. But what's this? This is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. I'm showing you the 3 clauses of Section 10 for a reason. Right? The first thing we see here in front of these 3 sections is no state shall. No state shall. No state shall. All 3 of these sections, clauses, start with no state shall. Now, you'll notice here, the first clause of this says, no state shall enter any treaty, blah, 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 blah. And the second 2 says, no state shall without the consent of Congress. Okay? So these 2 clauses can be circumvented if Congress allows, but this one cannot. Okay? This one cannot. So, I don't think at this moment we have any state that has entered a treaty, though we might with Israel. I don't see anybody currently allowing privateering at the state level. I don't currently see anybody coining money or putting bills of credit, a government credit card at the state level. But what we do see is the state making anything. This is what they're in violation of. Okay? The state is forbidden from making anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. There's a problem here. We're not on the gold standard anymore. And guess what? There was no constitutional amendment ever passed to take this away. So what does this mean? It means right now, each and every single state is racking up a debt and not even paying it. Right? Our $1 trillion deficit for our nation, it's never going to go down. Why? Because our states are not paying it. They're not using gold and silver coin anymore. They're just using the US dollar, which is worthless ever since a certain law went into effect, a certain law that sought to circumvent this, that sought to make itself greater than this. Okay? I mean, we could look down here and say, like, these are things states aren't allowed to do, but which one's being actively violated? This right here, with the Fed. The Federal Reserve violates this. And we can look through all the amendments and see nothing affects this clause, which means no change was made. Which also leads us to the next problem. And before I take you there, let's just leave off and say that the reason the states not paying their debts is a bad thing is because the country is constantly using the debt as a reason to justify whatever they're doing against us. They say, we need to deprive us of this because of the debt. They need to deprive us of that because of the debt. We need to do this because of the debt. But the problem is they're actively not paying it. They're intentionally not paying it. They have paid zero debts since the Federal Reserve has gone into effect. So that's all nice, right? Like, okay, yeah, government's not paying their debts. But, like, do they really have to, you ask? Like, what is it really so important that they can't pass a law to say that they can use some coinage other than gold and silver? Well, they can just do that, right? Right? Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. We're looking at Article 5, Article 6, my apologies. Article 6 in Roman numerals. And there's the first section, the first clause of this, the first section is about debts, but it is saying before the adoption of this Constitution, and we are well past 1776. Okay, we've adopted it, so we can ignore this for now. But we go to the second clause of Article 6, and I'm going to read it for you. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which may be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in this Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Okay? There's the clause, but what's the meaning? Where are we being lied to in the government today? Well, the first things first. It says, this Constitution, meaning the one we're reading right now, this Constitution, the one that contains this exact Article 6, as well as its laws, shall be made in pursuance thereof. And you ask me, what is pursuance thereof? The blessings of liberty. The blessings of liberty. Okay? So we're going to leave that there. Okay? And what's important about this blessings of liberty, which everything in the laws and the Constitution shall pursue? Well, those blessings are the supreme law of the land. Shall be. Supreme law of the land. And any judge that proclaims that the blessings of liberty are not what we're pursuing is trying to escape the bounds that they're within. They are bound by this Constitution and this clause in particular. And if they can't tell you that the thing we're pursuing is the blessings of liberty, then they have lied to you. and you are getting a malicious ruling. And that judge shall be, he's in bad behavior, he shall be stripped, which we can even go and see the clause that says they shall be stripped, and we can show you that they're still sitting on that bench. So, right now, like, our biggest grift is with the courts. Because we have this right here that makes it clear as day. We're pursuing, like, the Constitution and the laws shall be in pursuance of that liberty. But what do we have right now? We have courts at both the state and federal level that ignores this pursuit. They ignore this pursuit, and if you make a valid claim using this pursuit, they'll tell you no. And I can't say this for certain, but I have my suspicions they will deny you your right to go to a higher court. They will just deny you in the appeals court. Most certainly, they'll tell you to fuck off and go away. That's how they do it. And that's first-hand experience. That's the pursuance. That's where our pursuit has been violated. Alrighty, now that we've beaten the liberty horse to death, the quick ones that we are well aware are being violated. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This one's obvious. We see this one every day. I mean, just as of now, when I'm recording this, Colorado is passing some infringements. The state of Rhode Island is trying to pass assault weapons bans, though we are retaliating. There's more and more cities every day. But nonetheless, this is an prime example of the Congress just spitting on the Constitution. Prime example. It's like, I 2 years ago, my 30-round magazine, I could go to the store and buy one. Today, I can't. Today, they threaten me with arrest. If that's not a violation, like, I don't know what is, and like, to spoil the story, it's a violation. But we all know about the Second Amendment. What about the Fourth Amendment? The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated. And no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause. So, what's the problem here? 99% of the time we get violated our privacy, it's without probable cause. They have a warrant, but they don't have probable cause for that warrant. They're spying on all of our phones. They do it every day. They have spy planes flying above our own soil watching us as citizens. That's the violation of your right to be secure in your persons. Okay? Our houses, I mean, we have legislators that are trying to take away our gas stoves. We have legislators trying to tell us how our water should be, how to paint our fucking fences. Like we have no privacy here. We have no privacy there. They violate our persons with their drones, and they violate our houses with our phones. And our papers, well, every time you get in a car, for some reason, a car means you have no more rights. You have no more privacy. For some reason, just being in a car means you have no more privacy. So guess what? All your papers, your identities, your documents, everything regarding your ownership of that thing, guess what? You don't have the right to be private in that. Why? Because they're violating the Fourth Amendment. Because they're violating it. And the sole reason they do this, it's not because they've passed an amendment to allow them to circumvent privacy law and disparage our right to privacy in our vehicles and such. No. This all started in New York City with a law that they passed to quote-unquote stop car theft, right? The whole thing was a voluntarily signing up for a car registration to have a license plate put on your car to help reduce car theft. But guess what? They passed that saying it was voluntary, and then they made it mandatory, making it so you no longer have the right to freely travel without an unreasonable search and seizure. You will be arrested, unconstitutionally so, and because the courts spit on our blessings of liberty, they'll tell you, well, you can just ride a horse. They'll tell you that, but guess what they don't tell you? There's signs on all the highways that say no horses. So what did he tell you? That judge just told you to go fuck yourself. That's what that judge just told you. And he's told me this in person, looking me dead in the eyes. So I tell you, this is the truth. This is a fact. Our Fourth Amendments have been violated, and no court will uphold it because they're all corrupt. They're all in bad behavior. And we know fucking clear as day. DUI stops, intrusion on our privacy, backdooring tech companies, all violates the Fourth Amendment. It's like, you don't hear about it as often as the Second Amendment, but like I said, this is about what you overlook. Alrighty, so now we're at the Ninth Amendment. This is one of the most abused amendments, the most ignored. Right, and I'll read it to you right now. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. What does this mean? And how is it being violated? Well, what's an enumeration? An enumeration, like if you look at the page, you'll see the word the Ninth Amendment at the top. I have enumerated that this section is called the Ninth Amendment. I have enumerated the phrase Ninth Amendment. Right, that's an enumeration. And it's talking of certain rights. Right. Well, we look at this comma, we say, okay, the enumeration of certain rights. Whose rights are they talking about? Whose rights? Well, we can see from the end of this statement that we're saying shall not be construed to deny others retained by the people. So we know that the Ninth Amendment is saying the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights to the branches of government. Okay, the enumeration of certain rights to the government is what this is saying. Shall not be construed. What does construe mean? Construe means understood, interpreted. It is saying the government shall not construe the enumeration of their rights. They shall not interpret their rights as allowing them to deny or disparage the rights retained by the people. Okay? What does deny mean? It means being told no. What does disparage? It means belittlement. They look at your shit and they say, that's just a privilege. That's not, they disparage your right. They belittle it. They make you feel like it's nothing. The government's forbidden from doing that. And nothing enumerated in this Constitution allows them to do it. As stated here, it explicitly says the enumeration shall not be construed. But yeah, what do we have? We have retards that are attacking us. And now I have this thing playing. But nonetheless, that's what we got. That's what we got. Ninth Amendment is probably the most hated amendment by all of the courts. There is not a single court in this nation that will respect the Ninth Amendment, and I can guarantee that. So one of the other things that the courts absolutely hate, and another thing that is along the same way as the Ninth Amendment spat on by all legislators, all executives, and all judges, inferior and supreme, is Article 4's second section, first clause, which states, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Okay? If I'm entitled to a privilege, that means you can't take it away from me. If I'm entitled to an immunity, that means you can't take it away from me. Okay? You call my right to drive a privilege, sure, but I'm entitled to it. In fact, I shall be. But they take it anyways. They deny and disparage. A privilege is just a disparaged right. That's all a privilege is. And you no matter we're entitled to our privileges, we're entitled to our immunities, but the courts and the state and the federal government refuse to give it to us. Why? Because they're an enemy of us. They are our enemies. This is such a big problem, that clause, and its disregard, that it even makes a second reference in the 14th Amendment. Okay? And it says they go a step further and say, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the United States. And if you, like, it ends the statement there. It's ended. It's ended, okay? With due process of law, that's for this part here. No law shall be made or enforced. Okay, so the state is not allowed to make or enforce these laws, okay? So how many states have on the book a law that prevents how you're allowed to drive? How many states have on the book laws that abridge your privilege to drive? All of them. And guess what? None of them are allowed to do it. All of them are violating the Constitution. Okay, and you say, well, what about federal laws? They passed a federal law that abridges my privilege to drive. It is a disparaged right, privilege to drive. Well, sure, you can have a federal law, but they're going to need to send federal marshals in. You can't have if you're a law enforcement that works at the state level, even if you're deputized, motherfucker. If you're with the state, you can't enforce any law that abridges, reduces, shortens your privileges or your immunities. But yet we have it every day. And what do we have when if I go and tell somebody they're it's my I can't abridge my privilege to drive. What do they say? They say I don't care. They say it's not a right, it's a privilege. What do? They disparage. What do? They violate the Ninth Amendment. So that's how the unenumerated rights ties into our privileges and immunities, and the obvious fact that they're not supposed to have any laws that abridges these things, but yet they do anyways because they violate our liberty. Okay, now let's address the elephant in the room, the 16th Amendment. Okay, we're going to read it. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. This last part will become very important. So, this amendment sucks, okay? Nobody in this nation likes it except for the corrupt. So, how do we nullify this? How do we know this is corrupt? How do we know this isn't even, like, I'm telling you that this amendment's unconstitutional. How do I know? More than one way. First of all, let's address the blessings of liberty. Okay? Congress shall have the power. Shall have power. Right? That's already a fucking curse. There ain't no liberty in giving Congress power. Alright? Taxes on income. That's also a curse. Okay? There ain't no liberty there. There's no blessing in that statement. That's a curse. From whatever source derived, there's no responsibility, there's no blessing. That's also a curse. This is circumventing a clause, also a curse. Without any regard to census, okay, that's a curse, I'll show you why. Or enumeration. Mind you, every word, every letter in this Constitution is an enumeration. So this clause just cursed the entire Constitution. Just by saying this. Just by saying without regard to enumeration. Okay? So now, we're going to fucking murder this. We're going to destroy it. We're going to kill it. And here's how. First, we have to address how amendments are made. And in order to do this, we go to Article 5. We just go to Article 5. I'm hoping I'm still recording. This is a take 3. Article 5, right here. There is 2 important parts here for this murder, this slaughter of the 16th Amendment. Okay? So this big blob of red says Congress can make amendments so long as they have 2/3 of the support in both houses, that is the House of Representatives and the Senate. So if 2/3 of both of those buildings agree to an amendment can be made. They can make it, and indeed if they want to, they shall. If both in that sense, they shall. They shall make amendments, I say, provided that no amendment, which may be made prior to the year 1108, shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses of the ninth section of the first article. That's a mouthful indeed. So what I'm telling you is that the Congress can make amendments, and I'm also telling you that, oh, by the way, you cannot make a certain type of amendment, two of them in fact, and this amendment that you're not allowed to make, at least one of the two, well, there's technically three, but out of this highlighted segment of what we're saying we're not allowed to make as amendment, we are giving permission, maybe, we say we may, if we so choose, make this amendment prior to the year 1808, 1108, right? So, if I want to kill the 16th Amendment, and I know that this clause says, okay, yeah, if Congress says so, yeah, unless it affects these two clauses after the year 1808. Okay? So, before I even go forward in trying to say the 16th Amendment is unconstitutional, other than the fact that it's overtly not in pursuance thereof, I first have to figure out what was the ratification date, right? When was the 16th Amendment ratified? And I'm going to do a little Google search and show you. Yep. And I got here at the National Archives, .gov, the 16th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, federal income tax, was ratified in the year 1913, February 3rd. All right, the 16th Amendment. Okay, so with that, we know right away that it is indeed worth seeing what these two clauses are. Okay? Like, which may be made prior to 1808. 16th Amendment is 1913. That's after. So let's see if any of these two clauses are affected by the 16th Amendment. If one of them are, that means the 16th Amendment is unconstitutional. All right, so let's see. It says Article 1, Section 9, Clauses 1 and 4. Okay? Section 9, Clauses 1 and 4. And what do we have here? This is the first section. And ready? You got to be I'm going to read it to you, but you got to be careful, because there is a second mention of the year 1808. Okay? Article 5 says which may be made prior, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 says which shall not be prohibited prior. Okay? It will confuse you if you're not ready for this. Article 5 just says may not be made prior, but what we're about to read says will not be prohibited prior. Okay? Just so you know before I read it. So this first clause of the 9th section of the first article states the migration or importation of such persons as any state now existing shall think proper to admit. This was now existing relative to the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. The importation and migration of such persons shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. But a tax or duty may be imposed on such person not exceeding $10 per person. Okay? What does this say? This is saying until after 1808, you cannot use the amendment to prevent the migration of persons or the importation of persons. You cannot stop with an act of Congress people moving to America, and you cannot stop people importing slaves until after the year 1808, okay? But the Article 5 says we may change one of these two clauses, like we may change these two clauses prior to the year 1808. So what is one way we may change this? Since this says Congress can't prevent this thing until after, we can most certainly change it so that it is protected by Congress, right? Like Congress prior to 1808 could have passed an amendment to extend this 1808 deadline to instead of 1808, 818, right? Like he could have, instead of 100 years, it could have been 800 years or 8,000 years, right? But that's not what happened. And since the 16th Amendment has nothing to do with prohibiting the migration or importation of persons, we know that this clause is not relevant to the 16th Amendment. So we say, God damn, and we go to the next one, which is the fourth clause of this section. And this clause says, no capitation or other direct tax shall be laid. Now, this is important. There was commas between there, okay? No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid, unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. This is a mouthful. What's important? It says tax shall be laid. That's an enumeration. Okay? If you're not careful and you affect this clause, you outlaw the power of taxation. Okay? That's not what we're looking at. We see a taxation power being levied. And what does this clause do? This clause says tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census, which is a capitation, and as we see on the other side it says no capitation. Tax shall be laid unless proportion to the census. Oh, what's a census? No capitations for you. Okay? Okay? Tax shall be laid in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. What was enumerated other than the census, the capitation? Oh, other direct. And what is being taken? Oh, tax. Tax is being taken. It is being levied. And what is enumerated right before that? Oh, or other direct. Tax shall be laid unless capitation or other direct tax. Okay? That's what this clause says. So, does the 16th Amendment affect this? Oh, you're goddamn right it does. Why? Because the 16th Amendment says, right? The 16th Amendment, if we go back down here to it, it says, without regard, tax from anything and anywhere, without regard, census or enumeration. Without regard to census or enumeration. So what is this doing? It is in a very obvious manner, affecting Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4, which says, tax shall be laid unless in proportion to census or enumeration. So right there, you have the 16th Amendment ratified in the year 1913. Okay, ready? And Article 5 says we cannot change this clause unless prior to 1808. So what does that mean? That means that the 16th Amendment is 105 years ex post facto. Okay? What does ex post facto mean? Ex post facto is Latin for the phrase after the fact. Okay? What is the fact here? The year 1808. Okay? And what is the 16th Amendment? Supreme law. And guess what? They passed an ex post facto law. A very serious ex post facto law that can have them stripped of their power of taxation. A very serious violation that they have. Okay? And I'm telling you, like, this is such a serious violation that rebellion is called for. That inviting a foreign nation to invade is called for because, motherfucker, the public safety requires it. And, I mean, this is talking about the writ, and I'm telling you, this will be cut off unless we decapitate the 16th Amendment. It will happen. It is guaranteed. It's right here in, like, ready? Shall not be, no taxation without representation. Right, right here, right. That's and then it's like, oh, and by the way, you can't change this after the fact, and you fucked up if you did because you just brought a rebellion upon you and an invasion. Okay, there's your 16th Amendment. There's your tyranny. There is a lot more in this Constitution that deprives. There's a lot more. Like, ready? We can go all the way down to the 14th Amendment again. Okay? And we can go to Section 2. And we can see here, this is a very complicated mouthful of a fucking clause. But what we have here, it's like, oh yeah, representatives, we still have representatives after the Civil War, right? We still have representatives, right? And it's saying, oh, by the way, when you refuse the right to vote for the choice of electors, and electors including the president, vice president, representatives, the executive and judicial officers of the state, members of the legislature thereof, right? If that right to vote for the electors, that is the members of the electoral college, if that is denied to any of the male inhabitants of said state, of the person who lives there who wants to vote for his electors, and that person is 21 years old, and that person is a citizen, right? If that right is abridged, or disparaged into a privilege and abridged, unless you are shooting someone in the face or robbing them blind of their treasury, the representation of that state shall be reduced to the proportion of the number of 21-year-old male citizens. You see? And right now, there's not a single state. Like, I was 21. Ain't nobody ever told me that I get to vote for my electors. Nobody told me that. Nobody told you that. Nobody told anybody that. Wonder why? Because they're not letting us have that vote. They're not letting us have that vote. And all we have to do as a people is go into the courts, petition, and say, we want, like, the legislator's not giving us our vote, we want it. And if the state court says no, you file a lawsuit in the federal court, and you have your state stripped of its representation. And the only number it'll have will be the total number of 21-year-olds. Okay? This is a punishment we can do upon the political parties who have perverted and cursed our Constitution shortly after that with this 16th Amendment. And this 17th Amendment, which takes away, right? What does the 17th Amendment do? The 17th Amendment says, oh yeah, we have 2 senators in each, but guess what? We're no longer letting the state vote for it. The state no longer votes for the senators. Okay? The state no longer votes for the senators. You know what that means? It means we have no senators. It means we have no senators, okay? The senator that's sitting in your state now is not real. He is not a real senator. He's a representative. And it was not like he's not a normal representative. He's a corrupt representative. And guess what? If we go back to Article 5, all we as a people have to do to get rid of these fake senators is revoke our consent. Equal suffrage, because this is a denial. The 17th Amendment is a denial of equal suffrage. The state and the people no longer have equal suffrage. The state no longer has a vote. So there's no more suffrage. We have no senators. And, yeah, if the state consents, you can be stripped and deprived of your suffrage. But if we want it back, all we have to do is revoke that consent. And if they say no, we have the right to kill them. It is how it is. Because if they say no to that, they just said no to everything in this Constitution. They said no to the very blessings of liberty that we slaughtered the kingsmen to have. Okay? And if you think that a slaughter is not something that is called for on this? You think that you still have control over your constitution? Let me tell you this. The last thing that was ever ratified, compensation of the senators and the representatives. Okay? The last thing that was ever amended was a paycheck for the fucking Congress. Oh, and right here, this actually says that we don't need to be 21 years of age. We can actually invoke this 14th Amendment here because of this right here. And these fuckers can be slaughtered. And with that, I will leave you with it. I hope you found this pleasurable and knowledgeable, and I hope you hate the Congress and the courts, and depending on what the president's up to at this time, maybe even the president, as much as I do. Until then, share this video so that everybody understands we're being fucked.